All right. Welcome to the Code Review Weekly Workshop. Um, and let's talk about some code review things. Uh, I'm going to share my screen first so that we're looking at the same stuff. Um, make sure I don't have anything that might incriminate me or someone else. Okay, I think we're safe. Um, yeah, so regex is interesting. I like regex. But this MR had it was a little too long for my taste. It was like I like regex, but this MR in its original
Wow.
state got a little difficult to follow. But it's like there's no other tool for this thing. It's about like trying to find valid URLs in a string. And that's what's tough is like um but I have found in the wild like different ways to make regex more readable. So this one at the top is like that's the one, you know. Uh for one thing is like just imagine someone coming across this line of code and not knowing what regex is. Like
Yeah.
you just learn JavaScript and then you come across this, you're like,
I
what the world?
I
Uh,
think what I found is like it's only a subset of people who have either had to deal with regex or like really like regex who could really parse this. And this looks a lot like our routing layer code, which makes sense because we're parsing URLs also. And I
yeah,
also feel like outside of those cases, regex can be some sort of a smell.
that's true. Yes. Yeah. And so this is specific context. I'd be curious to know from your experience if there's any other approaches here, but I do feel like regex is the right tool for the job. I do think there's ways to make regex more readable. Um uh but this is about improving the way we find URLs in job logs so that we can create like links and stuff to them. It's pretty cool, but the right now it'll capture that last character. You see how like in this log it's all like bracketed and it
Mm.
finds the HTTPS, but then it'll capture this last character. So that's the context. And Jose did a great job of like deep diving into okay, what's a valid URL? All right, let's actually, encode it. Um, but one of my ways that I've seen us, and in this situation, there's actually I was happy to find that there's a pipe in the middle. So it's like and he left a comment elsewhere where there wasn't a way that he could, it sounds like there wasn't a way where he was able to reuse the HTTPS part and things, and that's fine. But whenever there is a pipe, you can actually like combine regexes, like join them together as a string and just create a new regex object all around it. And that kind of improves the readability because now I can see, two separate chunks that are going to be unioned rather than one really long line. There's probably more things that could be done to improve it, but um, I've seen some, and I know I've seen though, like some without piping. I know I've seen some like multi-line regex where like it has comments and things like that within it. I just forgot how I saw that. Uh,
I think
what were you
that's with
thinking,
an
Marco?
X or something like that, at least in Ruby land.
Oh, really? That's cool.
Sometimes.
What were you saying, Marco?
And not really related to the complexity of a regex, which always is kind of unsettling. But is this only targeted at recognizing HTTP URLs? Because you could also have FTP URLs and stuff like that, and that's
Yeah,
not covered.
good question. No, because I think this is just about creating links that I can click on the job log. So I think it's clickable links. So I think it's just HTTP and HTTPS
Hmm.
ones. Um, so after applying this and um there's sufficient like unit test coverage for this for this new bit, and this new bit is capturing the very weird variant of a URL that can like look look like that bottom one you see, like I don't know, some sort of IPv6 URL thing. Um, I think that's what it is. Uh, I don't know. That looks the kind of stuff that happens whenever my Linux distro installation goes wrong. I start to see those kind of things, and then I'm like, oh no, I gotta try to reinstall it. Uh, what were you gonna say, Yana?
What about the test cases on this? Like, am I missing something in the diff, or are we testing this like IPv6
Yeah, yeah,
only?
we have one, and I think I personally, um, and I didn't leave this as a. So looking at the change that we made with regex 2, um, we have only just adjust. Like, part of me is thinking, what's the worst case scenario here? The worst case scenario isn't that bad. It's just we wouldn't show a link on something. So we did add some coverage for IPv6 URL stuff. And it's like, okay, that's kind of what we're capturing. Whenever we have a regex, I like to see a parameterized spec of like, these are all the things that match the regex and these are all the things that don't. And it's like a big one. So that like helps me almost understand the regex better. But I didn't treat that as like a blocking comment because um I just didn't know. I, I didn't
Yeah.
want to hold it up. I mean, it could be, but like, but I was about to merge this. Um, but then I did leave this blocking comment. Um, I did one more look through the tests, and this surprised me. This test. Uh, can anyone kind of see what happened and see what was going on?
Which test?
This one on line 99. It's not that the test is written fine. Um, but what it implies, I was like, oh,
What's links that have brackets in their parameters? Help me. What does that even mean?
so like here with the query param arrays, that happens a lot in URLs. Uh, what we had landed on in order to solve the original problem was if there's a bracket, you're not a valid URL, and we're gonna stop there. And so that's uh
Cool.
how we're matching these. And Jose did, he did some research and he found that uh ah oh yeah. Yeah, this is definitely part of the standard is that brackets shouldn't be in URLs. But I see them in URLs all the time. So even though they shouldn't, it's like, what's going on? So then I find this Stack Overflow answer, which basically says like it's not as straightforward as just that line of the RFC. And the good summary of it is square back brackets can appear in the query string if they are percent encoded unless they aren't. It's kind of like what the rules say.
So
they
now we do have a religious problem, kind
of well, yeah, and I just think I know that the fact that we use brackets a lot in our own URLs, like, okay, yeah, I think we need to find a way to support those URLs, And so I left some ideas of like maybe based on the original issue description, we need to just be trying to detect, are we inside of parentheses or a square bracket, like, and maybe then I can just trim some, maybe that's based on
But
that original issue description, that was the scenarios, and it's like maybe that's the way we need to approach this.
but isn't there another way to do this, like without using regex? Because I'm thinking something like if you recognize the beginning of a URL, basically an HTTP with or without an S, an FTP and stuff like that, and then parse the string. I mean, not really parsing, but getting the string from there to the first white space, because that's basically the delimiter for the URL, because you cannot have white space in the URL and then use something.
Yeah.
I think there's if you do a new URI on JavaScript, that should give you an exception if the URL is not valid.
Yeah, I think that might be a good idea. But what's interesting too, though, and I was wanting to see if I could use new URL. I tried like, this is what our current thing is going to match. I tried that and it's valid. So so that's one of the things. And I don't know, it's like maybe then that's just the takeaway is like, yeah, you're gonna have to don't put characters next to your URL. I don't know.
Yeah, but if that's valid, it means that if you go to a URL that has a bracket like that, the browser will also think that's valid.
Yeah, let's see what happens if I think it should. Yeah, if I do this. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that, I think it's a Rails problem rather than a browser problem.
Well, it's 404 because it's not gonna be a thing. But I could definitely include like it's definitely in the query string. We definitely see brackets in the query string. But yeah, it's an interesting problem because like here we have you can use brackets for these like IPv6 stuff. And then here, like, okay, if we just match this, the link is broken. Like it's not going to link to the right place. I think it might be helpful to somehow find like that we're inside of a context, but I don't know. But yeah, I thought that was an interesting review, so I wanted to share it. One for the regex, and then two for I think there might be a requirements issue. Because I think we need to and I would define it as a missing requirement that I think we need to still support brackets inside of query params. But yeah, I thought that was an interesting one.
Oh, funny. I tried to put the closing square bracket on, for example, on www.google.com, and that basically triggers the search to search for google.com with a square bracket at the end. So the URL is definitely valid. It's just how the backend is treating it.
Yeah. Yeah, it looks like it's one of those situations where it's like the spec says don't do it, but it's been around for so long that it's like, okay, but you have to support it if they don't escape it. Okay, that was my review.
Good
Constance,
stuff.
you left some comments on there.
Yeah, that's interesting problem, and I like the option of parsing the string overall, maybe just detecting if there's preceding brackets. Maybe that would be a interesting path for us, or looking for pairs of brackets. Maybe I don't know. That's complicated. It might even spill into a full parser, maybe. What I mentioned here is that I think I saw libraries that just swap the regexes for functions, like it's with or functions like characters present, something like that. I saw that years ago. But yeah, at the end, I think it would be the same maintainability price, because it would be just a bunch of functions messed together, and it still would be up to the specs, I think, to look for how do they particularly work. So I think we won't win there much. Yeah. Doug, you have the next point.
Yeah, I just see the URL parsing. I can't help think that there's someone else there that has solved this in some way. Of course, I thought the same thing about email validation too, and then what I found was, I think what Sam and I found was that no, there isn't. The idea is just to not parse emails, and it's hard to do.
Just don't.
Just don't. Yeah.
Just the best way to do it is to try to send the email.
Exactly.
Fails, come back and say,
Yeah.
Try to send it, have them click a link.
If they can
And
click that, it
that's
was
what
real. Yeah.
and that's what Sam and I found out when we were asked, like, can't we validate these emails? I'm like, no, not really.
It's
We're
funny.
doing the best we can.
That's really funny.
Um,
Can I ask you, on that note, this is an interesting one. How do you all feel for something like this, like is valid URL? I'm sure that there's a whole package dedicated to that. How do you feel about adding a dependency versus just like copying their like function if it's all open source with attribution, of course, but like how do you feel about copying open source code rather than like depending on a package?
I think it depends on the complexity. Like if it's the famous is Boolean true npm package, I probably just copy it and not. But
Nice.
Yeah, and with the latest supply chain attacks that we saw going on, like it has benefits to just copy. Like if there's yeah, I'm with Doug. If you can manage the complexity and feel like this version looks pretty damn good and I need it, and if we run into bugs, we're gonna fix it ourselves, then yeah, sure. Like it has pros to it.
And you can also always credit the original author on when bringing it internal.
Yeah. Marco, since you do a lot of C++ stuff, there's not like a C++ package manager. Like,
Yep.
I imagine there's a lot of like consuming open source is probably there's more about like copying code, right? Or
Well, yes and no. I mean, it depends on what you need, because a lot of libraries, especially in C++, it's much easier to find something already done by someone else, and it's much easier to just use their library instead of shipping your own. But yeah, there are package managers, and for example, there's Conan that's also kind of supported by GitLab, almost. But yeah, I think the same problem applies for basically all the languages.
okay.
A final point here is like, maybe as a follow-up, I would suggest thinking about the problem differently. Right now, we're really deep into verifying it's a valid URL. Maybe that's not our job. Garbage in, garbage out. And we should just try to make sure we don't have unopened square brackets and just say anything between here that matches the first part, try to make it a link.
Yeah. I think that's, I mean, I think that would solve like 80% of issues like this is if we match a URL and there's a closing bracket at the end of it. And if there was possibly a opening bracket before me, then like, okay, we can just trim it. Like that isn't going to be perfect, but it's probably going to be sufficient for most cases. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, we've talked about this MR for a while. Yannick, you've got the next point.
Yes, I do bring an evergreen to the table. Let me just grab the screen for a second. And it basically boils down to, do I need to reproduce this? So the very vague story behind this, and this could have been anybody, but I was recently collaborating with somebody from UX who was really struggling reproducing a rather complex thingy that I've been working on, and I was really surprised, as if in we're speaking about a UX review here. Everything's provided as if in videos, screenshots, all of that. Why even bother? Why are we speaking about this? And what I then was pointed to, or what I learned, is really interesting, as if in our docs or in our handbooks. So this is the EE development docs, and there we state that. So I'm considering this to be a rather like a technical kind of document, more guided to technical reviews. And this basic, I lost it. No. Sorry about that. There we go. You have tested this MR in all supported browsers, or determined that this testing is not needed. So this reads to me, as optional, recommended but optional regarding reproduction. Funny thing is though, in our handbook, the UX review says somewhere, there we go. Always review the MR in a live environment so that you can experience the changes as our users will review them thoroughly. So this really needs as a must-have to me, which I think is a little odd. And I'm considering starting like a discussion about this and opening LMR for the UX review, making this optional as well. So wanted to get us some opinions on this. What do you think?
It depends.
I'll take that.
I mean, if it's like one page, nothing changing, and it like, live, like actually changing when you look at the page, then maybe a screenshot would do sometimes. But if you're going through multiple steps or you're clicking on something, some kind of thing animates or something like that, then, I mean, maybe even a video might suffice that. But if it's multiple steps, it just depends. Sometimes I don't run into UX reviews as often as I have in the past because I think we lessened our requirements around that. I don't know if that affects other people too on this call.
On my MRs, I'm gonna start leaving a guided meditation so that people can just close their eyes and visualize what the app is doing. It's a lot easier sometimes than spinning up the GDK.
Okay, I'll definitely bake that into the MR. That's a good alternative approach.
The screenshots are in your minds. Yeah. Yeah, I mean clearly our doc guides are not, gonna be consistent. I feel like our GitLab documentation, it's like to another level. The like issue that all the scribes in the Middle Ages, dealt with of like, they're writing things by hand, a whole bunch of them, but they're all kind of have their own ways of wording things, and because of that, it's like at certain times there's conflicts and stuff between the way we've said things. So yeah, we gotta open an MR to resolve that. I think I would suggest what the maintainer documentation suggests to do, which is basically like you're responsible for ensuring quality. That doesn't mean that you have to do all of the steps, but and so if I'm not sure if something's been tested, I can ask the author, can you test out this thing? This specific case? Or can you leave a screenshot for like a small display or whatever like that? But it's inefficient for everybody to run it locally.
Yep.
Like kind of what the review app is also trying to solve.
Have you all noticed the review app like not being available? Is that not working anymore?
It's been builds for it have been crashing sometimes. Yeah, I've noticed that.
That's been disappointing. I found it helpful, and all of a sudden it seemed like it was not available anymore.
Is there like a suitable ways to get licenses into the review app? I've never really worked with it, I have to admit. Like to test an ultimate only feature or whatever, something behind a license.
That's a good question.
Because
I
I don't think
assume
that's...
you can just throw your personal license in a...
Yep. Yeah.
I think it has. I think it comes fully licensed. It won't have feature flags on, like.
True. Yeah.
I think you can actually enable feature flags through the API. I've done that before in a review app. Yeah, it's helpful. It's nice.
Yeah.
It'd be really nice to have a review app and also a Rails console for the review app. I feel like that would be really good.
Yeah.
Over in IDE land, we have talked about big idea of not just having a review app, but a review remote development workspace would be really cool. Of where we've deployed it, but then we can spin up the code behind it and the server running for it, and open the Rails app or make changes.
So kind of a combination of checkout MR in IDE and the review app.
Yeah. That's just a dream though.
Because notice some of the UX reviews I've gotten, the UX reviewer will actually try to use it in the web IDE, and then sometimes run into issues there.
Yeah.
Cool.
When in doubt, do a screen recording with voice narration.
Yeah,
Helps a
absolutely.
lot.
Awesome. So yeah, thanks for the feedback, everybody. I'll make sure to open a MR to the UX review guidelines and see if we can more align them to the external technical items. Sweet. Doug,
Yeah.
you've got the next.
Second contradictory guideline I've seen this week.
Oopsie.
Yeah, I've also found we have, as most of you are aware, especially by Janik, what you showed there, but we have a handbook thing that tells us generally how to code review, and then we have a doc site thing that tells us how to code review. And I noticed that while I was doing the MR, that is the next point, which is the awareness of how to treat non-blocking. And so I just wanted to raise that. I was concerned, like, where do I put it? Do I put it here? Do I put it here? Do I put it higher in the doc? They both talk about the same thing, like they're competing sometimes in some ways, like I feel like our doc site should, I feel like the doc site code review guidelines should probably move. No, I can't say that. I can't say that about the other one either. It's like they're concerned about different things, but they're overlapping, and I never know where to find code review guidelines, the real, set in
You're
stone.
trying to say that it doesn't feel like there's a single source of truth.
Yes. Yes. And Janik pointed out another one, because the UX reviewers have a different one too, and it has different concerns, but it's in a different area.
Everything GitLab Duo these days.
You're right. I need to start asking it.
No, I mean it's dual source of truth.
Oh, right. So anyways, awareness around that merge request where we updated the docs. Hopefully it'll help. It's maybe I found in the MR that folks that are in APAC will find it more helpful, because the async cycles are tending to be longer, because they tend to snag reviewers in 12-hour offsets at times and things like that. A lot of times I was finding on my merge requests over the last few years here is that I would get non-blocking comments, but then they'd pass it back to me, and not a huge deal, but each time I'm like, this hurts me. This is not how my brain thinks non-blocking means, and so I want to make that more clear. And then
non-blocking always feels like ignore at will for me.
Yeah, right. Or open up a follow-up, like and what we found, I think, in some of the comments.
Non-blocking nitpick. Wow.
Yeah, right.
A blocking nitpick. I just saw the comments.
I think what people were saying in that merge request we found was that maybe they were using the term non-blocking because they felt that was less confrontational language, perhaps. Maybe that was being used as a tool, but other people thought of non-blocking as a different thing, as like, eventually this could be merged without it, but I want your thoughts on it before I do that. And in my mind, that did not mean that. And so I think we surfaced some of that there too.
I like the idea of someone leaving a non-blocking comment. It's like, well, like you got to fix it, but you know, it's non-blocking. It's no big deal, but I'm not going to merge it unless you do it.
What I found sometimes on mine was that I would get non-blocking back to me, and
Yeah.
the person was going to merge it if I didn't get to it, but they wanted to give me time to look at it, but that wasn't communicated in any way.
Yeah, I've seen that. I do think that's interesting interpretations of I do think people this is real. People attribute a cost to opening a new MR. And so I think it's coming from an efficiency place where people are like, hey, here's a little thing. We may want to take care of this here, or do we want to create a whole new MR for it? And unfortunately, it's like, yeah, the main project, creating a new MR, even for something small, is costly because, man, I feel like pipelines are very flaky. It's like at least I feel like I don't know, handful of times a week, I'm just retrying pipelines. Let me rephrase that. That sounds like I spend 20 hours a day retrying pipelines. Or 20 hours a week retrying pipelines. I'm saying that like I don't know. I find myself wasting like this could have been merged. It's so straightforward, but it's like it waits 3 days because of various failures, flakiness, whatever. What were you saying, Yannick?
I was just wondering or thinking about this mantra that I heard you say a lot, Paul, was basically the net benefit of an MR, that we are gonna be able to merge this when this is kind of the thing. So if I imagine myself to be in a scenario where there is an MR and I would have 10, for good reasons, non-blocking comments, I'm actually leaning on merging this thing no matter what, especially maybe we might be at the end of a milestone. So I would argue that the potential damage that we do by shipping this late could be bigger than just do follow-ups for it. In best case, if you have enough time as a reviewer or maintainer, click the buttons yourself, create them, but that's probably optional. But leave a comment as if in, hey, let's iterate small. These are things that aren't the greatest, but still, this is good to go as is. Let's make sure we're getting this benefit in as soon as possible.
Yeah. Yeah, and I lean towards that of like I do think it's worth us being efficient. Yeah. And let me ask you a quick clarifying question, Doug. And when you see this and someone leaves a non-blocking comment, do you see them and they haven't merged? So they've responded back. The only thing open or labeled non-blocking. Do you see that they still approve?
Sometimes and sometimes not.
Yeah. Yeah. I would be totally fine if but unfortunately, like, you know, you'd have to be a maintainer to do this. But like if someone just left non-blocking and they approved and they were like wanting to get it back to me, if I wanted to take care of things there, I've done this before and I've received it just like go ahead and merge if you want to take care of these labels. It's like, oh yeah, that's great. I'll just merge it. And I think that's a nice way to do it too. But yeah, thanks for clarifying this because yeah, I think it's weird. I think especially to like newcomers can quickly see how different people interpret, you know, the language around our code review differently, and it's helpful to find a balance. Yeah. Did you get to chat about the second point here?
No. So I just wonder if anybody's had this scenario where a reviewer doesn't even make a comment on the MR, instead wants to have a sync conversation without first attempting to ask it asynchronously, and what are your thoughts about that?
This is my favorite way to get MRs merged. I assign it to someone and I schedule sync. I like ping them and say like, hey, can we hop on a call? And then I force them to agree with me on the call through positive affirmation of like, yeah, it all works, you know, this is what we did. And other person's like, yeah, okay, all right, I guess I'll approve.
The other way around, though.
I know, I'm joking.
But I do like the push and stuff. Like, look, I want to get this merged. Hop on a call. I'll review it with you. I like that.
It's
too.
a funny situation of like I find it's interesting. I cannot review as efficiently synchronously. I feel like I can do it way more efficiently asynchronously. But I'm also just way more agreeable synchronously than I am. And not like that's a bad thing, but like I don't know. I don't think it's a unless there's like a really a high reason for being urgent. I think it's good to lean towards our normal way of doing reviews because I don't know if we're if we're hijacking some good friction.
Yeah.
If even if it's urgent, I think it might be async still. I mean, I could see a sync conversation when a setup is tricky, and there might be a discussion about how to properly set up that instead of writing a huge text, maybe. Or if it's hard to comprehend and author wants to convey something from that, or if there's I don't know, some critical security stuff and we want to push that as up, but still the review itself could be asynchronous, I think.
Yeah. This was a new one. I've never experienced this in almost 5 years of someone not even making any comments and instead reaching out to talk about it in a meeting, which is fine. And fine, like, you know, I got to step back and say, like, I want to get things merged all the time really quick. So that is, but there's no real timeline on saying like this has to, you know, like from the product side, right? So it can have some time, but it was just a new experience. I don't, you know, it gives me a chance to say hi to the person. So there's value in that, which is harder to do at GitLab. So it's just interesting. I would say like to the thing of like, yes, it's easier than to write a whole line of text maybe, and maybe that's some of it, but I feel the same thing when like I'm like, this is a good thing that GitLab forces us to do, is to think about things and write out our thoughts. And I think that's actually a good thing. And like having a synchronous conversation in a lot of places is bad because like you never get that transparency out again. It's like you got to recap what you synchronously said and you lost it, right?
Yeah, it's especially hard for everyone 3 months down the line taking a look at this MR. Why was this done this way? And 99 out of 100 times that code review call won't be recorded and attached to the MR. So yeah.
Yeah. It starts, I think it kind of feels the same line of like how we try to handle meetings if we have to have them synchronously here, besides this one. That we should document everything, we should record everything, which we're doing now, but we try to skew away from them in general.
What do you think, Marco?
I only have two things to add to the async stuff becoming sync, because I saw a recent example for the contributor success team that basically leaving comments, I don't know if that was an issue or an MR, turned basically to a sync conversation, because if you keep the tab open and you keep replying to the comments in there, it basically becomes like a chat, so you can get the same result. And one other thing about the reaching out is that is something you can do internally, but that's not really valid for external contributors. So that's, I mean, if someone wants to understand better why some changes were made that way, if it's internal, it's one thing. If that's for someone from the community, how are you going to handle that?
I have actually, like, I think hopped on a sync call with a external community contributor. Like, I don't remember what was the context, but like I ended up giving them my Calendly and they scheduled something and we walked through something together. It was fun. I loved it because it was like,
And
but
that's
it's so inefficient. Like, it's not a great.
yeah, but that's good and bad at the same time, because yeah, it's inefficient like you mentioned, but it's good because you basically reach out to the community, so it's more open towards them, towards us. But it's, if I mean, it could be also kind of somewhat documented. Maybe if someone from the team wants to reach out to the community, they could, we stream our sync chats, because we have the parent session on every Tuesday. But when the contributor success team at least is also open to ad hoc sessions, that if someone needs help and stuff like that, so that could be also open for reviews. If someone wants to reach out to the community contributors to better understand the review, they could either record the session or stream it live.
Yeah, and that's cool that there's the support and the community contributor success areas now. Yeah, talking about efficiency, I just want to say, like, sometimes the sync call is more efficient. And I think that's the time when we need to decide to do that. But I think it's probably worth us talking about how fragmented our docs are. It's probably worth us writing down that there are trade-offs to doing a synchronous code review. And I would in the past, I've felt this, and I kind of have to protect like my ability to, like, I'm not going to disapprove and merge it on the call right now. I need to just sit and think I need to sit with it myself. And so it's like, okay, we talked about it. All right, I'm gonna look over it again. I might leave some comments and we'll do that. I would to me, that's almost like the line is like, okay, I'm not just gonna approve and merge on the call unless it's like so crazy obvious, GitLab's on fire and we need this approved and merged right now, and we're on the incident call. Maybe I'll do it then. But
Do it
Yeah.
live.
I agree with that. I mean, I've done synchronous like after talking about it. You know, like, hey, let's jump on a synchronous thing. And I was the reviewer, and I felt like it was more it could tend into confrontational, like, okay, is this good now? And I'm like, I still have my thoughts about why this is wrong, you know, and I still think they're valid. So it's like more confrontational. It's like, at that point, I probably are more likely to give away to a become non-blocking in it, but hold my opinion. But I don't know how that would have been if it was still asynchronous.
yeah, and it's not a very inclusive way to collaborate either. Like, 'cause some of our contributors and team members, like, English as a second language is a spectrum, and so a lot of people, like, it's very helpful for them to do written communication where they can think about what they're going to say. Then if I'm in a sync meeting and I put them on the spot, is not necessarily fair. And yeah, that's I hate it. I don't want that to play out, and I think it'd be nice to find just a way, maybe something in our handbook to quote of just like, okay, this is a sync meeting. It's kind of like putting not fair pressure on one party.
Yeah, I think raising awareness. Like, 'cause
Yeah.
I don't mind sync most of the time, but it's like, it depends. If it
Yeah.
does become confrontational and then like I can't handle that day, I just may wilt and go away, you know, type of thing, or
Yeah.
something. or it gives me an unpleasant experience, you know, that type of thing. It just depends.
You were gonna say something, Yannick, because I think I interrupted you.
No, not that I could recall. Oh, yeah, that does, yeah. I was just wondering, this discussion is super valid, but what if I say this kind of boils down to no meeting without an agenda? Because that is kind of what it sounds like to me, as if there's doesn't have to be a good reason, but a reason for that I've been given to jump on this with production, open questions, whatever, more than happy to, but just because that really feels a little odd. And that is probably how I would approach it, as if sure, we can do a meeting. What is it gonna be about? Is there any agenda? That would be, yeah, probably the main thing.
Yeah, that's a good point. Maybe, and that goes along with like, there's been no comments. What's the issue? But maybe it's this person's way to not be confrontational in their comments on the MR, and maybe that's what's being done here. I don't know.
But I would say that is probably still doable, as if like I do have some questions around that file or something, like to phrase that in a very non-controversial visual way.
Yeah, but still do it in the invitation to the sync call to write up why they want it in a sync call. Yeah. Even if it's like a one-liner, all my comments always come across as passive aggressive, so I'd like to verbalize them rather than write them. I mean,
okay, yeah, like yeah,
that works, but it's still like part of the agenda. It's
yeah.
better than just you know,
But
I
at
have
that
to review
point,
this, so let's do this in sync.
at that point, the sync request could not be due internally, for example, on Slack, but just leave a comment on the MR with the reason why. And that's another thing. For example, in my company, we are all in the same office. So basically, we do all the reviews could be done synchronously, but for the reason of keeping track of why something was done in a certain way, I'm trying to force them to, okay, let's talk about it because it's easier to talk, but after that, write it down with a comment on EMR, because that way we can remember why we did this.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I know that years from now, someone's trying to understand the code, they'll get blame, find the commit, find the MR, and look for the discussion about the changes. And if that was all synchronous, you lose really important information.
If you find the MR.
Yeah, if you find the MR. GitLab's gotten a lot better at associating commits with MRs, but I'm still like, as a maintainer, I add the MR to the commit message, like just because the number of times like it's so old and it's on the old project, like that's.
I at least always like to have the issue on the commit message, and then from there we usually reliably link the MR. So
yeah, that's a good point. Has anybody ever had instead of just a sync review, but the author shows up at your house or a coffee shop and is like, hey, let's do this right
now?
No. No one while we were at Contribute, no one had the opportunity to like do an in-person sync code review.
I missed that opportunity.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, yeah,
that's the unconference for next time.
That'd be good. Yeah, it's unconference. Let's get stuff merged.
Yeah,
yeah,
review roulette in real time, kind of. Oh, we should maybe ask the folks that did the code challenge. They probably did that, I would assume.
Yeah,
maybe. Yeah,
good point.
Who won the code challenge?
The principal engineers, Shakar and Jesse, were. I think I don't know if it was all POC or if it had to be merged. Like I think it was all POC stuff.
And like your question was who won it, Marco? So I guess we all kind of like it was kind of make or break it.
Engineers versus Sid's challenge.
Yeah.
Oh no, I was talking about the 1 kilobyte of code.
Oh, yeah, that was a lot of fun. Oh, and I'm gonna record the all of the entries, and I'm gonna create a snippet that has a link to everything. That was lots of fun.
Yeah, I saw one, and
we had
Lee showed me, and basically what we thought that we should bring it actually the code into the product. The snake thing on the activity.
Yeah, it was really cool. I'm gonna show it to you all while we have one more minute. Yeah, it was really cool. I totally, even though I was reminding people about it, I totally forgot about it until the day of. But we actually had 2 winners for both times because the votes were split. So I was anticipating 1, possibly 2 across America and APAC timing. But no, we have 4 winners. So we got to create achievements for everybody. So Lauren's was cool, where you run the script and it turns your contribution graph into snake game. That's pretty cool. Yeah. And I guess you can win based on how many contributions you have. So I wonder if it's like, is it like taking your contributions away, or like maybe it is.
Yeah, it looks like it's counting down.
Yeah. I was wondering if it like visually took them away. But this would be a fun little April Fool's Easter egg for GitLab. Maybe not even April Fool's, maybe it can just be an Easter egg. Every April though, we always tell each other, we didn't do anything. So maybe it's next time.
It's hard to do something for April Fool when everybody can have a look at the code.
It's true, it's not a huge
You
surprise.
say that, and yet XY backdoor exists. So
April Fools.
That took a long time.
Touche.
It's funny. That's funny. All right. Well, hey, thanks everybody for hopping on. This was good. I will catch you all on another time. Take care.
Have a good one. Bye.